Lesson 1. I'm anxious about the world and I worry I might manifest bad things. When we feel disconnected from our true mental power, we make ourselves responsible for understanding everything that's going on around us in order to make the correct choices for our life. And this is when anxiety arises. Especially in these days where there are multiple different realities going on and things are changing very fast and we're not sure which reality we should be grounding into or what we should be doing or even can be doing to help ourselves and our loved ones. But no matter how complex your situation is, there is a place of poise in your sovereign mind that operates above all of these conflicting realities. And that's why genius is the fifth mastery in the sovereign way. Genius heals my anxiety. In a sovereign mind, genius is not about your IQ level. It is about your ability to know what you need to know in the moment and nothing more. And that position in consciousness is always available in the higher sovereign mind. You are a genius. You are innately emerging from within the mind of God, and there's nothing that you need to worry about because everything is known in the mind of God. You can understand and synthesize and formulate anything you need to, and it comes from a relaxed and surrendered position. In the sovereign mind, you don't need to know very much at all in any given moment in order to perfectly execute your best next move. Make a cup of tea, pick up the phone, lift up the elderly lady who has fallen on the street before you, synthesize and formulate your next message, source and gather the provisions that you need. All you need to know is the next step and the next, and then you let God create the sovereign way around you for your life's unfolding. Here's a practical exercise for you in your life. Take a deep breath and observe your thoughts without any judgment and without any attachment. And notice that they are all just electrical signals. Your mind is not your enemy. The fear that unwanted thoughts will manifest unwanted realities is a misconception. Thoughts do not create things. In Christ, it is safe for you to be present with your fears. You're not going to accidentally make them come true. You're safe to be present with your thoughts without fearing that they will overpower you. Anxiety weakens when we realize that we have dominion over our mind. And genius though you are, your thoughts do not create things. God creates things. Thoughts are electrical byproducts of a zillion subtle choices that you make in mind and energy throughout the day, together creating specific frameworks of understanding that guide the narrative in your mind. And yes, high quality thought yields high quality manifestation, but you don't have to be obsessive about having high vibe thoughts all the time. It's much more sovereign to be poised in your observation of authentic thought, and then your mental narrative will up-calibrate by itself. Poise first, and then you will think higher thoughts, and you will make good choices for yourself and your family and your community. So type this in wherever you are. Type it in. It's safe to think. You are allowed to think. You are allowed to doubt. You are allowed to question. And there's nowhere in mind that you can go where Jesus is not there to hold space for what matters most to you. Lesson 2, breaking free from involuntary thought systems. Anxiety thrives on automatic thought loops, and genius liberates the mind from these involuntary thought systems. Most anxious thoughts come from ingrained patterns rather than from conscious choice. So when your nervous system prehends a collective energy crisis, your cognition and decision-making collapses into a linear narrative that matches that particular vibration. So train your awareness to notice when you're in the mental loop of fear and stress. And then like, oh, here I go worrying about politics again. And notice the vibrational field that you're in. Using metacognition, thinking about thinking, to actively step into creative thought and regaining clarity. So here's a practical exercise again. Write down one anxious thought and then write a response to it from your highest, most sovereign self, the very heart of Jesus Christ. So again, to summarize, you're training yourself to recognize when you're in a mental loop and notice the associated vibration that's going with it. Write down that anxious thought and then respond to it from your highest, most sovereign self, the very heart of Jesus Christ. Lesson 3, transforming anxiety into creative power. Anxiety is energy. When used correctly, it can fuel creative breakthroughs rather than emotional paralysis. Anxious energy is like raw creative force. So instead of suppressing it, channel it into something constructive. For example, I was worried about the state of the world and I felt a sense of doom and gloom about what might happen next, and I felt powerless and confused. But I acknowledged that the anxiety I felt was not just mine. It's a universal field in the collective of ominous trepidation that many of us are participating in that energy right now. So it's amplifying. And sometimes that's a really good thing because revolutions happen that way. And so I asked, if this is a good anxiety, then what is it asking me to create? And in the last few months, since September the 26th, when Hurricane Helene and then shortly after Hurricane Milton destroyed our house and our belongings and our vehicles and our land, my husband and I have created a sovereign homestead, almost self-sustaining, lots of promise and lots of growth, with ducks laying eggs, with 460 gallons of water collection, with cute little bamboo growing trellises, with big fat squashes growing on them, unique features inside the house and outside the house that make us increasingly flood-proof, and now rows upon rows of herbs hanging up to dry because medicinal and edible herbs took over the lawn that was killed by the flood. And the sense of collective energy that is out there that was wreaking havoc on my peace has actually transformed my property into an ark that can float on any turbulence, like economic meltdown, climate change, zombie apocalypse, you name it. So mobilizing creatively in that way has really helped my anxiety. And although I do still find myself ruminating over world politics and trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong, I do still have a lingering sense of safety and peace in Christ, because I mobilized my anxiety into creativity. So here is a practical exercise for you. Next time you feel anxious, identify the thought pattern, pause, and then write down 3 ways that you can turn that energy into meaningful action. Lesson 4, how to reason with fools. Anxiety often arises when we feel powerless to convince others that they are being absolutely unreasonable. And at the same time, we feel pressured by others to see things their way without first even knowing whether our values align. Not many people know this about me, but I have a degree in criminology and journalism, and my dissertation, which received a first-class distinction, by the way, was titled Modern Obscenity, Censorship in a Globalized Media. And I read propaganda from many angles with profound interest. And one of my most dangerous superpowers is that I can make reasonable any argument and any perspective. All I need to do is to make logical syllogisms and any story becomes convincing. If I'm not really, truly connected and intimate with my core values and what matters most to me, truly, then I can easily find myself aligning with something that's logical, but not true. That's why it's so important for me to keep discerning truth from falsehood and follow Jesus Christ only, because I can very easily convince myself of the merits of going down the wrong path. I see so many around me right now being convinced by logical arguments. It's so important to remember that no matter how logical something appears, it is only true logic if the originating premises are true in the first place. Truth has certain unmistakable characteristics that we've covered at length here in the Oasis. But to shorthand it, keep looking for the fruits of the Spirit. An argument or reflection, in whether it's in propaganda or kitchen discussion with your loved ones, an argument or reflection may be logical, but is it loving? Does it value human joy? Does it not just proclaim peace, but actually also invite peace? Is it patient and understanding of the complexities of process? Is it kind? Does it put goodness over greed? Does it promote faithfulness or control? Is it gentle? Is it self-restrained? Look for these qualities in what you're reading and follow the fruits of the Spirit, not just the rationalizations of mind. And also remember that your genius mind is always poised and present, and you can find it within the configurations of your core values. Your core values are the foundational premises that you should do your highest sovereign reasoning from. And that's also why it helps me so much to have good and trusted confidants, like my friend Christy, who saved my mind this morning. Good and trusted confidants who know my core values and help me to orient myself to those true values when it matters. Anxiety is natural and easily transmutable, and your sovereign genius, which is built on your core values, is the aspect of your mind that empowers and liberates your mental world. Thank you very much for watching. Let's go to the Oasis for a group discussion.